because our government was, the island was afraid of sabotage. But this island was about 80% Japanese in those days, 85%. So they figured if they put them out on the tarmac, they could keep an eye on them. Well, Japanese loved that because they destroyed them all. So as a courier, my first base was Wheeler, next door to Schofield, taking messages from the command post to the field operation. Well, when I got to Wheeler, the second wave just started. I dove off the bike behind a construction roller, bang, bang, the bullets were whizzing all over. Finally, they left, got on the bike, went over to Hickam. They were there, off the motorcycle in the dirt again. Wheeler got this side of my face, Hickam got that side, from head to neck. They matched, so I did pretty good. They patched me up, on I went, and then to the other 5 airfields, back and forth all day. And then there were rumors later that the Japanese had surrounded the island with troop ships, parachutes landing on the other side of the windward side of the island. And an invasion fleet was coming in. They were all rumors, guys. They never did come back. But we were not allowed to take our uniforms off. Or our guns. They had to hang on to our rifles and our helmets. Got a little, no sleep that night. Well, from then on we trained. The whole line was a massive training. My outfit, being the engineers, our project was laying steel matting on the shores if there wasn't an airfield so our planes could land. Now they were built like a flat cheese grater, and they were 10 feet long by 4 feet wide. At 128 pounds, I couldn't even lift one end, and my duty was to lay them together, and then we clamped them, and we clamped that one, and made a runway on the sand so our fighters could land. Well, they decided I couldn't lift the end, that I would hammer the clips in place. The sledgehammer was so heavy I couldn't pick it up above me, so they had me just putting the clips in. Well, from then on, 8 months of that training, then it was overseas. My very first base was Canton Island in the Marshall group. Sorry, I got pictures of all this that I'm telling you, but they're not here. It was Canton Island built like an egg, in the shape of an egg, opened at one end. Our president lines, our cruise ships in those days, were named after presidents. The President Taylor, and they were converted to cruise ships. President Taylor tried to get into the harbor because the middle was harbor. It got stuck on the coral and couldn't get in or out because there were no tugs there to pull it out or push it in. And so we stripped it of everything usable. Every moonlit night of the month, the Japanese bombers would come over, dropping their bombs, trying to sink it. They never did hit it. But they'd go back to Japan and say, sunk another American ship, which they didn't. Now, Canton Island was right on the equator, guys and gals. It was 110-15 during the day, every day, and it was 114 every night. So we slept in the bunk, just about all of us. There were no ladies on the island, so we could do that. And especially if it rained, we ran right out with our regular soap. Otherwise, we had to take a shower in the salt water with salt soap. That wasn't much fun. Well, this one night after the all clear, I went back to my bunk, and I had built a little shack out of wood that was left there. Canton Island was actually a British possession with a roof on it. Went back to my bunk. Next thing, hell was breaking loose. The roof of my little village blew off. Grabbed my rifle and my helmet, and that was it. I ran out and dove into a trench, which was coral. Hit the edge, cut my face again from here all the way down. Landed on a goonie bird, which real name is an albatross. They're like a pigeon with a brown nose, brown feet, and a red feather out the rear end. landed on it, turned around, gave me a dirty look. I think he got the Purple Heart, I didn't. And that one, and then from then on, guys, I was there 14 months, building our very first progressive airfields. From then on, it was island hopping. We followed the Marines when they captured a Japanese island, and we were right there with them. As soon as we pushed the Japanese far enough back, we were in there filling in the craters and cleaning it off so our own planes could land. The Japanese weren't too happy about that, and they kept shelling at us, so we pushed them far enough back. So that went on all through the rest of the war. Tinian, Saipan, Okinawa, Guadalcanal, Guam. I ended up at Okinawa, ready for the invasion. I hadn't had liberty for 2 years, so they finally gave me liberty while we were in training for 2 months to invade Japan. That would have been a mess, folks. They estimated 1.5 million American servicemen would have been killed, and 1.5 million Japanese civilians and military would have been killed. They would have been, every single Japanese would have been strapped with dynamite, hand grenades, pitchforks, baseball bats to repel our invasion. So that was the estimate of 1.5 million Japanese. But because of the atomic bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which ended the war, and I know a lot of people say, oh, we were so cruel to kill those 160,000 civilian people in Nagasaki and Hiroshima, but because of the atomic bombs, we saved 3 million. I'll try to compare them. So on the way home, I mentioned it. On the way home, the war ended, and I didn't have to go back. I had enough points.
How old were you in December?
Sorry?
How old were you when you were here at Pearl Harbor?
Well, when I got here, I was just 20. And I became 21 in August of 41. Right after I got out of high school, I had a job which I didn't like, and I joined the Army from Cleveland, Ohio. Now
Was there a flight of B-17s that were coming back, and do you know what happened to those guys?
There were 12 B-17s coming from the mainland. They were stripped. No guns, not even seats, because that was a long flight in those days, and fuel, and that helped save it. Well, when they got here, the attack was going on, and every one of those B-17s was shot. Not a one of them they all landed safely, even though they were shot up real bad. On playing fields, roadways, golf courses, they landed. Marvelous flying fortress is what they were called, you know.
But they were so stripped they had no way of defending themselves or anything.
They couldn't defend themselves in any manner. Now you've heard of our radar. We just started radar, and they put our new radar system up on in the mountains up there facing. Well, on the morning of December the 7th, and it was brand new, these young engineers were looking at the scope, and they saw this big scope going back and forth, and they called their commanding officer and explained that to him. He said, "Oh, don't worry about it. It's our 12 B-17s coming in." Well, they were coming from a different direction. And even if they did spot them, it wouldn't have been that big of a blip. So had they paid attention, the attack might have ended differently. Now, I told these young ladies this story. You think the young people would like the story of the baby?
Yeah.
I have a little melancholy story to tell you. And what I'm telling you now, ladies and gentlemen, is what I do when I go to the grade schools, high schools, colleges. Only I have a lot more to tell than I'm telling you right now. I have about an hour and a half to talk. And at the end, I tell them a little story about the USS Utah. which is still over here, as you know, still in the water with 54 sailors down below, and the remains of a little baby. One of the petty officers on the Utah and his wife, can you hear me back there?
Oh yeah.
Getting hard from all day. And his wife had identical twin girls. Identical. At birth, one of them died. And it was the custom of the family to have them cremated and scattered at sea. Couldn't be scattered here in those days. I'm glad because I myself will be scattered to the bow of the Utah when I die. I want to be down there with my friends and shipmates and comrades. Anyway, he took the urn on December the 6th. You sleeping? Yeah, me too. Got up at 4:30 this morning. You too? Where was I? Oh, I did. He took the urn, put it in the slumber, waiting for a chaplain to come aboard on December 6th. Chaplain to come aboard and the ship to go out to sea so the ashes could be scattered as one other child from their family that had died and been cremated. Well, of course, December 7th, the next morning, the Japanese attacked, and as I mentioned, sunk that Utah, which they were ordered not to bother, within 3 minutes, taking those 58 sailors and the remains of that little baby down below. They did get 4 out, the sailors out, so there's still 54 down below. Well, the next 3 days later, divers went down to try to retrieve that urn. It was so mangled, they could not get to it. So to this day, 54 of the sailors and the remains of that little baby is still down below in the Utah. Well, every year, twice a year, or once a year, on December, her identical twin sister by the name of Mary Wagner, which was her Navy father's name, Keel, and lives in Northern California, goes over to the Utah Memorial. Unfortunately, it's not open to the general public yet. And I've been fighting that. I want people to be able to go over there and pay their respects just like they do at the Arizona. So I've been fighting that. But anyway, I'm allowed to go there because I'm a Pearl Harbor survivor. And family members, of course. Mary Wagner. She goes over there, holds a mirror in front of her and says, "Aloha, dear sister." Well, last year, 2 years ago, at the Admiral's Christmas party, I got to meet her identical twin sister, Mary Wagner, Keel. Just a lovely lady. I was hoping she'd be here, but I haven't seen her yet. I don't know if she passed away or not. That's basically my story, except the tragic one. I don't think they would like the tragic one, do you?
Yes.
I love anything you
We
say.
read Macbeth.
You got a captain.
I tell it to the high
We
school
read
kids.
Macbeth.
And
Yeah, we read Macbeth,
it's
so.
not a very happy story, but it is part of history. The USS Oklahoma, which I told you rolled over within 9 minutes, trapping almost 500 down below, killing almost 500. In the dispensary was a medical officer and 4 pharmacist mates. You know what they are? They're like nurses, pharmacists. They were trapped in the dispensary. The ship was literally upside down. The hatches were stuck. The water was coming up and up and up, till it almost got to their chins. The medical officer dove down. He come back up and says, "Guys, strip everything. I found a porthole. Follow me down and we'll all get out." He went down, the other 4 followed him. 1, 2, 3, got out. The 4th one weighed 200 pounds. He could not get through that porthole. And that blessed man by the name of Austin held the porthole door open for his shipmates. And if that isn't a hero, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what is. Thank you, Austin. Well, no, that's it, guys.
Thank you.
Any questions, I'll be happy to answer. you enjoying your trip, guys?
Yeah.